everyone, and welcome to Astrology for Healing. I have some information about the houses. It was requested that we take a look at the houses. What I'm going to do to break down the material in smaller bite sized pieces and to go through it slowly and methodically, we're going to do house by house. So I will do it live, and then what I do is I download it and I save it on my YouTube channel, which is Holistic Healing Astrology, and that is on the YouTube. So that's where you can find all my material. And I thank you very much for following me and asking me the questions. I'm here to serve you, and my expertise is astrology and the readings, especially. I do teach, and I'm getting some class material together to do my next workshop. That will be announced in the future. Also, my other expertise that follows with it is the whole metaphysical world as far as intuition, and I'm setting up a workshop for development of your psychic abilities and how to understand the psychic world, etc., etc. So when I do an astrological reading, it encompasses an intuitive factor as well, because that's just the way I work. So, um, as you know, astrology is extremely, extremely complicated, and it is like a diamond, many, many facets, or a very complex meal that we're going to set up. And there's a lot of preparation, a lot of mixing, a lot of stirring, maybe heating, just so many steps. But in order to do a great astrology reading, we need to have your birth date, birth time, and the place of birth. So if you don't have a birth time, we still could do a reading. We just won't know what your ascendant is, and we won't know the houses, where the planets and the signs are in every house. So you still get a really good reading. And then I break down the readings into components. Uh, it's too long to have a reading for one day, so I like to do a 2 session reading, and that way on the second session, after you've digested the first part, then you could also ask questions on the second part, and then you do get a third reading, which is more of a question and answer on what you've heard. So it's a 3 part component, and I find that it works better that way, because we're in it for the long haul. And anyhow, let's start with the houses. So today's lesson is about general house groupings. And the houses are grouped like a clock. The clock, if you can imagine a circle, is divided into 12 segments, like 1 segment per hour. Excuse me. So the most important houses are the angular houses, and they are house number 1, 4, 7, and 10. House number 1 on the wheel would be at the 9 o'clock to 8 o'clock segment of the pie. And those are the cardinal points, and they're the strongest. The fourth house is between the 6 o'clock and the uh, 5 o'clock uh, setting. And when we look at the houses, they go counterclockwise. And then on the seventh house, that is another cardinal point, more important than the non cardinal points, and that would be between the hours of 3 and 2, that segment of the pie. And the last one would be the 10th house, which would be between the hours of uh, 12 and 11. And I'm saying it backwards like that because that's the way the astrology wheel goes. So the least important, unless they have planets in them, are the third, sixth, ninth, and 12th house. And then, even less important than that, are the second and the uh, fifth, eighth, and 11th house. So uh, that's the quadrants. We also look at how the planets are dispersed in the different quadrants. So the first quadrant is house 1 through 3, and that is an unconscious expression. It's also egotistical in nature, dynamic, charismatic, and it pays attention to your own interests, not other people's. So anything between the first and the sixth house has to do with you, not others. So the second quadrant is the houses between 4 and 6. And here we unconsciously relate to others. That's the sociability, creativity, daily work. The third quadrant is houses 7 through 9. And that's where we confront ourselves unconditionally with others. And it's the interpersonal nature. This is where we thirst for company and we need other people. So if you have a lot of planets in there or your sun is in that area, that's the overall theme or feeling of your chart. So that's the third quadrant. The fourth quadrant is house 10 through 12. And that's where we confront our conscious ego with our society in the whole. And that's when you go back and forth, and that's where you get a lot of growth and development and maturity. Uh, Also, it's the spiritual and humanitarian actions that you will see. So if you have planets in that area, you will have emphasis and some yearnings in that respect. There is also a detached feeling from individuality considerations. They may have more humanitarian efforts and group efforts instead of focusing on the self. So we'll get more into that later. I want to stick to the topic at hand. So, also, they're not really interested in the practical things when there's emphasis on that fourth quadrant. So, we also have the hemispheres. We have the northern hemisphere, which is houses 1 through 7, and that would be egotistical in nature, very subjective. It's what you do alone, the things that you do alone. The southern is the southern hemisphere is 8 through 12, houses 8 through 12, and that would be active, objective, externalized, and group oriented. So if you have most of your planets in those areas, then that would tell you that that's where your life course is heading. Now, we also can divide if most of the planets are on the eastern or western hemisphere. The eastern would be houses 10 through 3, and that would be a person who is independent and they focus on personal actions. And the opposite would be the western, that would be houses 4 through 9. And that would be a huge importance of communication, dependency on other people. So that would be the wide angle view of the horoscope. So when you look at the uh, photograph of the sky, you would look at all the planets where they're scattered around or grouped, and then you would break it down into the house groupings. So thank you again for watching. Remember, you could go to my YouTube Holistic Healing Astrology channel, if you missed this and you want to review any other topics that I looked at, the next video I'm going to do is take the first house. So thank you again, and feel free to share this with all your friends that may be interested in astrology. And have a great day, and keep those comments coming. Let me know who you are, where you came from, and let me know if you're going to be visiting one day soon.